stuff. All right, so one of the things I've been doing is I've been using your work to try to make instructional decisions on the lessons that I need to teach you, the most critical lessons that I need to teach you in order to prepare you for the FSA writing test. And one of the areas that continually seems to give you problems as a whole class, and both classes actually, is the idea of elaborating on text evidence. So what does it mean to elaborate on text evidence? What does it mean? Rossi?
To say more.
To say more. We use that, say more. We want to say more about that evidence. We don't want to just give a whole bunch of pieces of evidence in our paragraph and then say at the end, this proves my main idea. That's not what we want to do, right? We want to present the evidence, and then we want to say more about it so that our reader can make the connection between our evidence and our main idea. Now, one of the things you might remember from last year, if you were at Schitt's Creek, are our two sisters, Evie and Ella. Raise your hand if you remember them from last year. Okay. So you might remember the Evie and the Ella, but you don't always think about them when you're writing your body paragraph. Okay? And so the idea of our Evie and Ella is to visualize this as you're writing your body paragraph so that you will remember to say more, to elaborate on your text evidence. Okay? Now, Ms. Hoffman, who also teaches 5th grade, she created a really kind of cool PowerPoint for us to use, and she gave me permission to use it with you. She shared it, and to also record it and to put it on the YouTube, on my YouTube channel so that you can watch it again and again in the context of this lesson. Okay, so for those of you who don't remember Evie and Ella, or you never heard of Evie or Ella because you weren't here last year, let's walk you through this, okay? All right, so we have these two sisters, and the first one is Evie, okay? She's Evie. She's a little bit geeky, she loves to read, and she collects all kinds of information, all right? She picks up, she likes to do research, she quotes, she paraphrases, okay? And she gives all of this information. If you look at the bullets here on our slide, okay, Evie loves to read and research. She proves her points with evidence and facts. She relies strictly on what she's learned from the text. She cites her sources. She says where it came from. And she's very confident, and she enjoys being first. So that should help you to remember that the first thing you present in your body paragraph after your main idea sentence is going to be a piece of evidence. Notice Evie's name. EVI are the first 3 letters for evidence. That's how you remember it. Evie goes first, the evidence goes first. So you're going to present a piece of cited text evidence after your main idea sentence. Okay, that'll be the first thing that you do. All right, so this is Evie. Then she has a sister, Ella. This is Ella. Now, Ella likes to step in after Evie has presented her evidence, and Ella likes to explain things in more detail. Okay? She likes to tell people why that is an important piece of evidence. She wants to tell the reader, she wants to tell her friends who don't understand her sister, what it means in relationship to the main idea. And then how it proves the main idea is true. Okay? All right. Now, Ella likes variety. All right? Which means she doesn't keep saying, this means, this means, this means. She doesn't keep saying, this shows, this shows, this shows, which is some of what I'm seeing in your writing. You're using the same transitional phrases over and over again. It becomes repetitive. So Ella likes variety, and she always follows Evie. All right? She always follows Evie. So evidence first, and then elaboration. And remember, Rossi told us that elaboration is when we say more. Okay? So after Evie has talked, and all of her friends are scratching their heads and saying, well, what does that mean? Ella is stepping in, and Ella, would you please get the door, John? And Ella is going to be explaining how this evidence relates to the main idea. Okay, so let's go ahead and watch Evie and Ella in action. Let me make sure that my volume is on. All right, so you have to imagine in your head these two sisters and their conversation. And I'm telling you right now, if you can do this, if you can imagine them in your head when you're writing your body paragraphs for your essay, your essays are going to come out much better because you're going to be saying more. All right? And you're going to be saying more in such a way that your reader is going to clearly see what you're trying to talk about. All right, so let's go ahead. And here is Evie.
In the article, One Student, One Teacher, it explains that staying with one teacher all day allows students to form a close bond with their teacher.
Okay, so notice that she's presenting the evidence. She has cited it, and in this case, she has cited it with a transitional phrase, naming the article, using quotation marks because it's an article, punctuating it properly. Okay, and she has paraphrased it. She has given a summary. It explains that staying with one teacher all day allows students to form a close bond with their teacher. Now, if somebody just said that out of the blue in the classroom, you all would be shaking your heads and wondering what point they were trying to get across, okay? So then obviously Ella, who wants everyone to understand, is going to speak.
In the article, One Student, One Teacher, it explains that staying with...
Okay, let's go ahead and hear what Ella has to say.
This may not seem like a big deal, but it can make a huge difference in a student's learning. For instance, I spend the whole day with one teacher, and it helps me relax and feel more comfortable asking questions and taking risks with my learning.
Okay, so I want you to notice that in the evidence here, it talks about forming a close bond with the teacher. All right, and notice when Ella starts to talk and elaborate, she's describing what a close bond is, okay? So it says, it helps me relax and feel more comfortable asking questions and taking risks with my learning, okay? Bonding with the teachers, staying with them, getting to know each other, feeling comfortable, okay? Feeling comfortable in that situation, all right? So you know you have these two sisters and they should be in your head, all right? They should be in your head. You should hear the evidence that you're writing down in your body paragraph, and then you should imagine what Ella would say after that, okay? And notice, in this situation, we have two complete sentences of elaboration. Not just one sentence of elaboration, okay, but two complete sentences. Here's another example. And notice it's cited differently.
Many parents prefer to communicate with only one teacher who spends the entire day with their child.
Okay, and notice again we have a paraphrase. This is not a direct quote. All right, Evie has put this in her own words. And notice a different way of citing that evidence with the parentheses. Okay, you could do this in this way, but it's also good if you can give a paragraph. Now, it's probably not a paragraph here because it was a paraphrase of several paragraphs. It was a paraphrase of a whole section of the text, okay? So again, we have our evidence, right? And it's cited, all right? Some of you are not citing your evidence and you're making it sound like you are an authority on this topic yourself. Like you know all these facts and you knew them before you read them, okay? And so you have to make sure that you are grounding your evidence in the sources and that you are citing them. Okay, so now we have...
Many parents prefer to communicate with only one teacher who...
Okay, so now we're getting to the elaboration. Look at how much more elaboration there is than there is evidence. Okay, so when you're thinking about the balance between evidence and elaboration, your elaboration should always be more than your evidence. You don't want all evidence and no elaboration, or little elaboration. Okay? All right, so let's listen to the elaboration for that evidence.
Imagine parents wanting to know how their child is doing in school and needing to communicate with several different teachers. Coordinating schedules for a meeting with everyone would be a nightmare. A single teacher, on the other hand, simplifies matters greatly. In one meeting with one person, the parents can learn all about how their child is doing.
Okay, so again, let's just take a look and see. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 sentences here that elaborate on that one piece of text evidence. Okay, and notice we're not just saying this means that parents prefer to communicate with only one teacher who spends the entire day with their child, because that's just repeating the evidence, right? Notice it's being explained in more detail. What does that look like? What does parent communication look like? What does parent communication with more than one teacher look like? And it's through the elaboration that convincing, that persuading, when you're writing an opinion piece, is happening. You're persuading that person through your elaboration. You present the evidence, and then you elaborate on it. Okay, are you getting the idea? Thumbs up if you're getting the idea of what we're supposed to do. Okay, good. And here's one more.
Staying in one room with one teacher for every subject allows for more teaching time in the day.
Okay, and notice it's got the page and then the paragraph. Page 6, paragraph 15. So again, we have the evidence, okay, and again, it's paraphrased. All right. Now, what would you do if the evidence that was being presented here, what would you do if it was a direct word-for-word quote? How would you change the way that is presented? If it was a word-for-word quote from the source, how would you change it? Matthew?
By paraphrasing it?
No, that's not, I guess maybe I didn't ask it correctly. Gianna? You would put quotes around it. So if you're quoting text and you're taking it word for word from the text, you better put quotes around it. Otherwise, number one, your reader's going to think you've paraphrased, and number two, you've basically plagiarized, even though you've cited it. If you don't put the quotes around it, you're basically saying that you're paraphrasing and summarizing it. All right. So again, just before I play the Ella part of this conversation, let's just think about and look at the balance between the evidence and the elaboration. Notice how long the elaboration is. We have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sentences to elaborate on that one piece of text evidence, okay? So let's pay attention about how Ella says more about this piece of evidence.
Packing and unpacking supplies takes time and organization. Requiring students to do this more than once a day eats up valuable time that could be spent learning. Not only that, but inevitably, when it's time to switch, one class will be running behind. This can lead to students spending pointless time standing in the hall, waiting to enter their next classroom. Any waste of precious instructional time should be avoided at all costs. If students don't switch, this waste of time is prevented, and more learning can take place.
Okay, so notice how the elaboration goes into lots of details. Ella has thought about what it looks like in her own school. How many times, well, probably not for you guys, but a lot of times my class is waiting outside for you guys to switch, okay? And that's valuable time that's wasted. When they're standing out there for 5 minutes, just standing in the hallway, looking at the walls, okay? So when Ella elaborates, she's thinking about her own experience and she's explaining what that means using their own experience. Okay, everybody good with that? Okay. All right, so to close it out, remember, right, when you are writing your body paragraphs, and guys, let me emphasize this, body paragraphs. Evidence does not belong in the introduction or the conclusion. Unless you are using a quote for a hook, I should not see any citations or quotes in your introduction or conclusion. So the only exception to that is if you're using a quote as your hook. Evie always comes first and shares what she learned in the text. Okay, so you're presenting your evidence first. Then Ella follows, all right? And Ella tries to help the reader understand what Evie is talking about by explaining it more, saying more, okay? And they both need to be present in your body paragraph. Okay, are you ready to practice? All right. We're going to switch from the slideshow. And I'm going to present to you a piece of evidence. Let me just turn this around and focus. All right, so thinking about chocolate milk. All right, because we are writing an opinion piece on chocolate milk, whether chocolate milk should stay in schools or whether it should be banned or removed from schools. Okay, so here's what Evie's going to say. Melissa Dobbins, a nutritionist for the Dairy Association, says, and here's the quote, chocolate milk and other flavored milks have the same 9 essential nutrients as white milk. And then notice it's cited. Nutrition in Disguise is the name of the article. Notice it's an article and it's in quotation marks. And it's in paragraph 2 of that article. All right? All right, so what I want you to do now is I want you to turn and talk with a partner, and I want you to take turns being Ella. What would Ella say? 2 to 3 sentences that Ella would say to help to explain the quotation from Nutrition in Disguise. Okay, go ahead and turn and talk. You all know what to do if you don't have a partner.
This means that if you drink flavored milk, you're still getting the same. Wait. Imagine you're with your lunch and you get on a diet. And you are
All right, so let's stop for a second and let's share some of what you're saying, okay? Sarah, what was something that you and Ella shared? What would you say that Ella, and we have our Ella too, what would Ella say in response to this?
Chocolate milk and flavored milks have the same
Okay, can you hear what you're doing? What are you doing? Huh? You're repeating the information, right? And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this, is we have to break away from repeating the information. Okay, so stop and think. What is a nutrient? It's something in food. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? It's a good thing. Why is it a good thing? Okay, so it's nutritious. When we say something is nutritious, it's going to help your body, right? Okay, is that saying more about nutrients without repeating? Okay, and so that's what you want to be doing. Not repeating this at all. You want to be explaining how this proves. So for example, if you were saying that chocolate milk should be kept in schools, and the reason, one main idea you're writing about is that chocolate milk is healthy. All right, and so you could support that, because you could say that chocolate milk has 9 essential nutrients. Essential. So we know that they are things that your body needs, right? So if you were to continue them, then you would want to make sure that you bring that out. All right, Matthew, do you want to share what you and who's your partner? Oh, Camilla.
Yes. That Melissa Dobbins is trying to say that chocolate milk is just as healthy as white milk because they have the same nutrients.
Can you hear what you're doing? You're repeating what was in here. You're not really saying more. You're repeating what was in the quote. Okay? Emily, you want to give it a try?
For example, some kids don't like white milk and they won't be getting their 9 essential nutrients. But if they still serve chocolate milk, they would get their 9 essential nutrients.
Okay, the only problem that I have is that if the main idea here is that chocolate milk is healthy, what you just said does not quite align with my main idea. But it certainly is great elaboration that does not repeat the evidence. So that's good. Now, you could possibly use this evidence in a main idea sentence or in a main idea paragraph that was talking about drinking more or what kids like. All right, go ahead.
Imagine you're on a diet and you want to drink chocolate milk, but it's the nutrition, so you can still drink it.
Okay, I like the fact that you're not repeating, but I'm wondering if your elaboration is really saying more about it. Okay, so let's go back for a second. Melissa Dobbins, a nutritionist for the Dairy Association, says chocolate milk and other flavored milks have the same non-essential nutrients as white milk. And we said, let's imagine that this is appearing in a paragraph. That's the main idea, is that chocolate milk is healthy. All right? So when you were going to go to elaborate, you might want to say something like, our body needs certain things in order to function properly and grow. Okay? Those are 2 things about being healthy. You're healthy because your body functions properly and you're growing, all right, as kids, all right? So chocolate milk is going to make sure that students serving chocolate milk in the cafeteria is going to make sure that students get what their bodies need to function properly and grow. So notice that we're not saying 9 nutrients. We're not saying Melissa Dobbins again, all right? But what we're doing is we are elaborating or saying more about this in a different way to explain it. Yes, I'm sorry.
Can we have Sarah for signing out, please?
She's on her way.
Thank you.
Okay, so what we're going to do today, we're going to have ourselves, I have an exit ticket for you. And in the exit ticket, you are going to be looking at a piece of evidence. Excuse me, Gabriel. If you're talking while I'm explaining, you won't know what to do. You're going to complete the exit ticket by writing an elaboration, okay? And remember, you're going to imagine that Ella is speaking in response to the evidence that Evie has presented. So when you go back to your seats, I'll be passing out your exit ticket. Actually, I'd like you to practice in your notebook first. When you think you're ready to publish your response, I'll leave this up. When you think you're ready to publish your response, bring it to me. I'll sit at the conference table, bring it to me. I'll take a look at it. And then if you're ready to publish, then I will give you I will give you the exit ticket in which to publish. Does anybody have any questions before I send you back to your seats? Okay, go ahead and make your way back.